The truth is that investment is gambling. It's just legal. The reality is that many VC funds, about 60% of their deals on average are write-offs. There's a conversation about work-life balance. I think that looking for balance between both is the wrong premise, meaning that if you love what you do, then you don't need to kind of balance it out in a sense, right? I try to bring flexibility as best as possible, merging some workouts. Like I said, things are changing pretty fast. In the coming year, think of everything that AI cannot do and just do that. Building the companies itself is primarily based on personal brand, but scaling the company, the personal brand is often a painful part of that unless you can detach from it.
Scaling a SaaS business is never like a straight line, and today's guest, Mario Peshev, has lived that reality for over 25 years. He's built multiple businesses into the millions, advised founders, and invested in startups across SaaS, AI, and even hardware. Mario Peshev is a serial entrepreneur, investor, and business advisor. He's the CEO of DevriX, one of the leading WordPress agencies worldwide, and the founder of Growth Shuttle, where he helps companies scale through strategy, operations, and digital transformation.
Welcome to Leaders of Growth. I'm Milan Savov, CEO of SmartClick, and we help B2B SaaS companies to position on top results of Google and LLMs and get high quality leads. I started this podcast because scaling a SaaS business is never like a straight line. And I wanted to bring the stories, the lessons, and the strategies of real leaders and people who walk the talk directly to you. So in every episode, I will sit down with founders, CMOs, and people in leadership positions to uncover what's really working on in IT and SaaS these days. And today, I'm joined by someone who truly represents what this podcast is really about. It's about scaling business, building leaders, and shaping the future of SaaS and IT. So with us is Mario Peshev, the CEO of DevriX and the founder of Growth Shuttle. I'm a community where I'm also part in, where he advises founders, agencies, startups, and how to scale their business. And his advices are always with very huge value. So, Mario, welcome.
And thanks for having me. It's a great honor to be here. Congratulations for the podcast as well. I think it's an incredible effort to bring some incredible stories out there, to connect people together as well. So this is one hell of a way to give back to the community, and I'm really honored to be here with you.
Thank you, Mario. It's really a pleasure to have you here. So for those who don't know yet, how do you usually introduce yourself today?
Well, part of my job as kind of running consultancies and agencies is A/B testing. As you know, conversion rate optimization is very important, which means that headlines may vary, and they're also adaptable based on the audience and the ICP. So I don't have a clear point of reference, but to put it this way, I've been in tech for the past 25 years, tech and digital in particular. Built my first website in 1999. Since then, started several companies. So two of them built several businesses into the 7 millions from scratch. And I'm a big proponent of education, which is why I also run Growth Shuttle, the advisory service.
That's great.
And yeah, been dabbling with a lot of different things. Right now, DevriX is providing RevOps solutions for private equity, mid-market companies. We love data. We love growth stories. We are very data-oriented, meaning that we work with again, CMOs, CROs, CFOs as well, on FP&A, financial analysis, breakdowns, roadmap planning, and tying that to goals for marketing and sales teams for growth.
That's really great. Impressive portfolio, impressive career path. So I know that you're leading DevriX and Growth Shuttle. So I'm just wondering, and you also invest in a lot of companies too. So how do you manage everything? How a typical day looks like on your end?
Well, there's a conversation about work-life balance that I don't necessarily buy into. I think that looking for balance between both is the wrong premise, meaning that if you love what you do, then you don't need to kind of balance it out in a sense, right? So I try to bring flexibility as best as possible, merging some workouts, some of them at 11:30 a.m. or so. So like I take an extended lunch break or so for a workout and a session just for clarity and thinking. There's some work that happens over weekends. It's just necessary focus time or strategy or the community itself is kind of something that
Yeah.
I'm also catching up on weekends. So I'd say that, of course, I have I'm engaged, we have 2 kids, love to spend family time, definitely try to pay a lot of attention on that as well. We have a lot of business that we are based in Europe.
Yeah.
2/3 of our business is in North America, meaning that there's a lot that's happening in the evenings. So I'd say that it's kind of an ongoing journey. It's a sprint, not a marathon. And time-wise, if I have to sleep in, I sleep in. If I have to take an extended lunch break, I take in. Evenings we try to spend a couple hours for dinner with kids or like going out. But it's definitely not a 9 to 5, 9 to 6 job. You close the laptop and you open it next day. Definitely
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
that. It's more of an ongoing 24/7 thing with different life breaks in between.
Yeah. So it's mostly like to find the passion which you're doing, so not feeling like doing a job, and then make it like part of your life, so you're balanced all the time. That's cool. Being an advisor and also leading an agency, how do you combine them both in your vision?
It's kind of a cross section of kind of how did the advisor start. First, DevriX was started in 2010, and we mostly focused on the agency type of services, technology, digital marketing, and that type of stuff. Throughout the course of time, we had a lot of requests that required like fractional CMO, CTO, like even fractional CEO. I've worked actually over the years.
So
with
it
different
comes like
businesses.
naturally to you. While you work with companies, they started asking for additional advice besides the service which you're offering.
Yeah, some of that is existing clients that come for that. Some of that is prospects that ask for the strategic side and don't necessarily need the engineering side. So at some point of time in 2016 or 2017, the number of requests were piling up a lot. And I just decided to shape it as kind of a separate, okay, here are a couple packages for you, you can do this, or like, here's the hourly rate, and say, well, okay, can we take a 1,500 monthly package or 2,500 monthly package? Some said we are ready to hire you for like $7,000 fractional advisor per month or something like that. And I said, okay, maybe I should find a way to balance it out and kind of run 2 different branches. So I decreased part of my kind of DevriX work. Again, as a CEO, obviously delegation is part of the most important things that you should do. And I bridged in the other part as kind of 2 separate services. So these were also priced differently. I think one of the key things was agency clients were not calling me all the time, expecting me to be on calls, which wasn't necessarily happening at the time. But it was, okay, if you need that, it's a completely different type of strategy consulting type of service that looks differently and normally costs like 4 times more. So, and again, some clients were also coming just for the advisory part. And what I found out that running these 2 was opening up opportunities among each other. Also, I was using Growth Shuttle as an acceleration test engine. I had an R&D team there that was separate. They had targets for growth, testing, podcasts, Quora, different channels, books. The process was faster. I had 4 people on the Growth Shuttle side just doing constant R&D, and DevriX were more on the enterprise end at the same time. So I think that having that balance, sometimes we at some point we had 55 people on staff at DevriX, and at that size, certain things are going through different stakeholders and require approval from different divisions. And this is great if you know how to scale and you have a plan for the next 18 months, but not if you do weekly experimentation. So this is kind of how I penned out both parts of the spectrum. Over time, and especially over the past year and a half, I would say is we are getting lots of blended requests, meaning Growth Shuttle clients asking for DevriX work, DevriX clients asking for kind of more of my time, and that entire kind of RevOps GTM positioning that's over the past year is kind of bridging both things together. So I'd say that DevriX has a lot more consulting, and we have some great people. We have a director of engineering from Redis and kind of worked in other kind of notable US-based startups. We have some kind of doing interviews with people from KPMG, from McKinsey, from Accenture. We have a VMware interview in just a couple hours. So a lot of that kind of enterprise grade is something that's kind of reshaping and kind of pumping up the ability for 1/3 of the DevriX team to offer reliable services as well. So again, I'm kind of trying to bridge that gap, limiting my time spent purely on Growth Shuttle to really key strategic executive deals, and also bringing a lot more of that into the DevriX portfolio of services.
That's great. The reason behind this question is because when we serve some customers, they also have like a need of advisory for maybe some other part of the business, and they look out for like advice or suggestion about it. And it's a bit challenge for me how to implement that into the offer, because it will not be like a niche down in offer, so it's like different segment, and also it requires a lot of my time. So I'm just thinking, should I do that and give more time with direct consultations, or just focus only on the business and growing the smart leaks? This is a bit challenging.
Yeah, what I can say is, and again, we've tried different things. So first, whenever you have some recurring revenue and the business is profitable and you have the safety, like it's not a feast and famine cycle. What I've discussed with clients is several different things. First, strategy costs a lot more, so it's just priced separately, right? There's a consultancy part on top of that, which is not implementation. That's one way to put it. Second, kind of what I've done also for kind of ongoing clients is I have a cap. I spend no more than 2% of the retainer's time myself, meaning that if there's a, let's say, 100-hour retainer, I spend no more than 2 hours a month on that account. So if you want more time, or if you want me to show up on QBRs or something, then you need to be at, I don't know, 200 hours, 250 hours or so that you can spend some time. And, that's kind of spreading out, and those there's some added value on other things. And then there's also the growth shuttle side, which is, sure, my code time is $600 an hour. If you want to do it, that's fine. But right now, DevriX is, and again, it's a blended rate because of consulting, but it's at, let's say, $150 an hour. So it's just 4x more. So depends on what you do. If you want, we can spend a couple hours at 600 to do that. If you want, you can have a full-time person for an entire day doing something. Like, you decide what's valuable, what's more valuable to you, right?
That's a great point. You also started as a tech guy in the past. So before moving into the leadership positions and the CEO, I'm on the same road, and I know that a lot of SaaS founders are also tech guys who have an idea and then start a business. So what were your biggest challenges and struggles when you make that transition, when you started the company? Can you remind of something?
Yeah, of course. I think, especially if we're talking to tech people right now, what I can say is that if you think of, you start as a developer, you spend a couple of years in, let's say, PHP or JavaScript or Java or .NET or Python or Ruby or whatever it is, and you aspire to become a full stack engineer, right?
Yeah.
There's so much more to full stack engineering, even though part of that is also your one core skill set and one specific language that you know. So there's, let's say, if you're a, PHP, Python, Ruby or so engineer, you also need to know JavaScript. You also need to know very well databases.
Yeah,
you need to be proficient in SQL. You need to understand Apache or Nginx or kind of other servers. You need to know operating systems and all that. So there's so much more even to just turn into a proper full stack engineer. So the same transformation, even at a larger scale, I would say, means that if you kind of dive into engineering itself, then you also need to understand product management and internal project management. Then you also need to understand marketing, and you need to understand sales and legal and accounting and operations and kind of so many other different branches across the core ecosystem, which honestly, it's not something that you can fully comprehend. For example, I'm not a designer. I cannot, I'm very foreign to Figma. I hate legal, right? I can't spend too much focus time on one piece of paper and kind of go through that. So I have my weaknesses. I know that very well. Even in 25 years of business, I've leveled up a bunch of my skills, but I'm not necessarily great at all of them. So this is why you need a team. You need to figure out your strengths, but you also need to understand the bigger picture. I don't have my book with me here, but I also have a book called MBA Disrupted, which was focused on kind of building businesses start to end, go-to-market strategies, primary, secondary research, buyer personas, building offers. So many of these steps are things that you need to study. So when I started, I spent several years freelancing on the side so that I can understand pricing and scoping and scope creep and managing the process, managing multiple processes, outsourcing, freelancing, hiring, a lot of these. And it was kind of a long transition period up until the actual CEO part was handled at some point.
That's really, really great point. And when you look back at the agency, can you point out like few turning points where you actually have massive scale? What was the key decisions which you made then?
That's a great question. So the first one I would say is deciding to focus on WordPress. So first, as an agency, we started to build pretty much everything.
Niching down only to one platform.
Yeah. So at first, I remember a point in time in 2010, I had a core PHP project, a coding editor
Mhm.
project, a Django project, an
Mhm.
Android project. Android was just starting out, and a Java project, and one C project, and one for
Mhm.
set-top
Mhm.
boxes, which was assembler. It was literally 7 projects in 7 technologies I didn't understand well enough, and it was grueling. But again, we were just taking all sorts of crazy projects
Yeah.
because, yeah.
Usually everyone do this in the very beginnings.
Exactly. So niching down, I joined as a kind of co-founder slash CTO for another startup that was WordPress
Mhm.
based. It was extremely painful the first 3 months. I hated it. The first month it clicked. I said, okay, that platform can do pretty much everything. I'm sold. We turned everything into WordPress now on. So focusing on that was great, and this was definitely a great pivot. That was 2011. In 2013, we joined the project and turned it into a small retainer, which we didn't fully understand at that time, but a project that was building SaaS with WordPress. So we said, okay, we're now building product MVPs and SaaS on WordPress. So we were one of the first companies in the world to ever build SaaS platforms on top of WordPress. 2015, we switched to retainers. We coined the WordPress retainers title. So shifting the business model and kind of operationalizing everything so that it can scale. Great idea. 2016, 2017, scaling publishers with our ad op solutions. So especially arbitrage publishers generating tens of millions, hundreds of millions of page views per month. Great
Mhm.
pivot. 18, positioning more of the digital marketing services. 2020, it was another kind of internal transformation. 2021, 2022, go to market and kind of growth, demand generation kind of retainers on top of that, and then the transformation to everything. So I'd say every like couple of years, there's a new breakthrough. That's just, if you're stalled at some point, then you see a need that's repeating over and over and over and over
Yeah,
again.
yeah.
You just take a massive peak for a year, then you're
Mm.
mostly on hold again and take a massive peak, and that's more or less how it goes in competitive environment.
Great. So if I understand you well, you firstly niche down, but then after a couple of years, you just added on top of that like another service, another service. So you scale the departments also, not only scaling the main service, WordPress.
Yeah, you need both focus and diversification, essentially. So you need the focus because you can do everything, but you
Mhm.
also don't want to bet all your horses on one specific piece of tech, right?
Are you like merging all of these services like on top of the WordPress, or you can operate only like a separate, or maybe better question, what's your first initial sell when you try to sell in that position when you have like more services to offer?
Well, I'll take the SaaS slash product example, right? SaaS businesses, great salespeople, they don't sell features, they sell benefits,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, yeah,
So we also don't sell like a technical implementation, we
yeah,
sell the outcome. So that's very, very, very important. And as a result of that, a good chunk of our work is still WordPress, by the way. The vast majority of our clients still have
yeah, yeah,
core WordPress platforms, but that also means that half of our clients, we manage their CRM stacks. We are a
yeah,
HubSpot agency partner. Some, we manage their Salesforce stack. For several, we have data engineering platforms, big data, dashboards, and all of that. For some, we manage additional data like custom PHP or microservices or service workers or serverless or a bunch of other different things. In the grand scheme of things, WordPress is less than a third of everything that we do, but
mm-hmm.
WordPress is also something that almost every client has, right?
Yeah,
So in essence, we have some strengths, but we are solving problems. Whenever we solve a problem that requires landing pages and sites, we say WordPress first. Whenever we solve a problem for marketing teams, oftentimes it's HubSpot,
yeah,
or
yeah,
oftentimes it's multi-platform. So you need a kind of single core platform, which is still WordPress connected to a HubSpot, to a
yeah,
data engineering layer, to a bunch of other different things.
yeah. That's great. Uh, when it comes like to scaling the revenue, uh, so it's probably definitely different for each stage of the businesses, but let's say you're in the very beginning and you have the knowledge which you have now. What would you do like first to grow the business from 0 to 1 million?
I would. I have another book which is still not here in the other room, but it was written in 2019, and it
Mm-hmm.
was called 126 Steps to Becoming an Entrepreneur. And then the subline is the dark side of going solo.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
this is to say that I'm not necessarily suggesting that everyone should start a business. I actually think that solopreneurs are struggling big time right now because of all the fad of online working and work from home over the past 3 years. This is why on Twitter you now see tens of millions of solopreneurs and indie builders, and that's
Yeah.
not sustainable. Like you can't
Yeah.
have half the planet building software because someone has to buy it, and then you
Yeah.
need to scale it, and then you need different skill sets to make it work. So this is this is counterproductive, right? It's just a red ocean type of thing.
Yeah.
So the reason I'm saying that is different trends and different dynamics are shifting so fast and so quickly that you cannot be tied to what works right now at the moment. What you need to understand is business needs and business requirements and seasonality, because the market is guiding most of that.
Yeah.
2023 was not guiding that. It was a crap year for many. 2024 too, like depending on when you stay on the curve. Now in Europe, actually 2025 is a worse year than 2023, while the US is recovering, right? So you have geographies, you have economy, you have wars and trade wars, political relationships, you have venture capital funding, you have different economies and markets. In some cases, direct to consumer is doing great because people are afraid they're going to lose their money and inflation and buying everything they can in advance. In some cases, P2P is bad because of VC funding withdrawal and layoffs. So this is why kind of my newsletter is primarily around macroeconomics, because this is what's guiding all of our decisions, right? We see common recurring problems across a wide set of businesses in different geographies, and we say, this is a big red flag here. That country, that segment, that industry is in a big trouble the past 3 months. This is probably going to continue. We project the next 12 to 18 months. There's probably something that we can do here, right? But if I just say, hey, you need to do indie solopreneuring, 3 years ago, it would have been valid. If I say you need to do drop shipping, in 2018, 2019, it was valid. You need to do publishing. In 2016, it was valid, right? But most of these get oversaturated quickly in a year or two. And you just need to be progressive and understand how the industry moves and kind of what your competitive advantage is. What I definitely say, I wouldn't bet on like a single platform and definitely on a commoditized solution. Like I wouldn't say like I'm a PHP developer, WordPress developer, SEO guy or something. You could be organic growth consultant or inbound analyst, advisor, something, right? Because if it's not Google search, it may be Bing search, it may be Reddit search, it may be Quora. Like most of the inbound traffic may be moving. So we know that inbound is always going to stay as a channel. But yeah, so I use it more loosely, not related to a specific piece of tech or a specific channel or a website. And then this kind of expands you to grow, because this is why you're solving the problem and not selling the piece of software.
So try to find what the problem is, then make a solution for it, and then sell it to more people to help them.
Definitely, yeah.
That's great advice. Let's discuss more about the personal brand. Can you give us like an idea how much your personal brand helped you in scaling the companies? And was it something which you did like strategically, or it happened naturally?
So building the companies itself is primarily based on personal brand. But scaling the company, the personal brand is often a painful part of that unless you can detach from it. Because building from 1 to 5 people, you can solo almost everything, and you can actually earn the entire revenue cap to pay for 5 people. Honestly, in many cases, that's actually possible. That's why I know a lot of people who are 5 teams, and actually the CEO is a SAP consultant making, $300 per hour and actually just giving away the salary to fund the business or something like that, which is wild. But it is technically possible for A players to make it happen to a certain extent. But when you start scaling, then in most cases, there's a big gap between that personal brand solo, A player kind of founder and the rest of the team. And I'm not saying that in a negative connotation way. It's more about the founder in that role is a grinder working 8 hours a month, a week, and doing a lot of different things and wearing different hats. So if you sell the contract in that capacity, then you can imagine that it's tough for the rest of the team to deliver or fully offload. So I was working on that for a while, then I actually stopped for about 3 years because I said this is actually impacting the business more than how it's helping. So I want to make sure that I'm kind of normalizing the team and actually coaching and training them better and building better processes and not like selling through kind of myself. Then with Growth Shuttle, I did that in parallel, but the narrative was I'm not selling DevriX per se. I'm a serial founder who is also managing MarTech agency. And that narrative is different, right? That agency is working with less of my time. I'm not spending 8 hours on that. I'm spending it across different things. I actually have 3 other companies as well, but they're working mostly standalone or with kind of outsourced partners or something. And this narrative is different, right? It's not my full time. I'm not spending again, 60 hours a week plus on DevriX.
Yeah.
It's a business that I've designed to be running with less of my time and supervision. I'm working on other things. I have my advisory firm. I have fractional contracts. I have my investments. I have my public speaking. I have my other things. So, yes, I can walk you through kind of what we do. Yes, I can, jump on a call or two. But that team is really capable, and we've been in business for 15 years, and some of these people are with us for 6, 7, 8, 9 years or so.
Yeah.
So they definitely know what they're doing.
So it's nice to start personal branding and maintain it until the agency grows, but then try to detach out of it so the company starts like representing as a brand with the team inside. Maybe this was the time for you when you started the growth shuttle as a consultancy, when you noticed that. Is it like overlapping in periods?
Yeah, I would say so. Around that time, we also hired a strong VP of engineering internally. We introduced a couple of strong product management and marketing roles as well. So like most of the divisions were kind of set in place so that I can offload a lot of that. So
like you have every sector in the company has A players at that point who can actually take the lead for the company. So then you feel that you can detach from the operation.
It's putting the right people on top of the chart so that everyone has accountability of their own division and everyone is tied to essentially results, retention, expansion, hitting revenue goals and stuff.
That's really, really great advice. How much do you think this is like applicable for a B2B SaaS business? For example, when actually the leaders are not selling the softwares by themselves, is it maybe more important to build the brand first, or to build the CEO's image in the very beginning?
If I think about products that I'm using, and I'm just thinking of SaaS, and like I'm thinking of...
Maybe you don't know none of the founders.
Yeah. Well, I know. So I know Dharmesh from HubSpot, for example. I know the Salesforces and all the other guys. But let's say we're using Riverside to record that. Do you know who the Riverside CEO is? No, I'm using StreamYard. Do I know? No idea whatsoever. Exactly. I use Opus for editing my clips. Exactly. No idea. So I think that the whole founder-led branding type of thing is one way to go for it. The founder-led is one way to put it.
Growth,
Yeah, but it's not the only way. If you have a strong, if you come from demand generation, like if I've ran a successful PPC agency in similar products, I can start a faceless brand easily and make it work. So it depends a lot on the category of product and a lot of other things. So in my case, and why I'm still kind of pushing and stuff, we do work with some mid-market enterprises, right? Trust is everything. You want to make sure that trust checks in on every single corner. You want to verify credibility, which means public speaking, keynotes, boards, investments and stuff. So it's part of the aura to be in that place, but it's selling to companies that are making $30 to $500 million a year. And not all B2B, because there are lots of B2B SaaS that are actually selling to solopreneurs making $5,000 a month. And it's a different territory. So it definitely depends on where you stay and what your persona looks like, where they hang out and what they need at the time.
That's great. You gave really great perspective on the personal branding, both for the agency and for the B2B SaaS. I know that you have a lot of experience in investing and you invest in a lot of companies. So when it comes to that, especially in SaaS businesses, what's like the most important for you as an investor? What are you looking for so you decide, okay, that's the investment where I will put my money and time on?
The first thing I'm going to mention is I'm slowing this down methodically right now because the market has been crappy over the past year and a half. So keep in mind, a lot of investors around me are kind of in a similar boat, even though I also have private equity investments, and they also have some upcoming VC investments too, which are kind of a broader portfolio and not necessarily tied to a single specific company. But what I can say is that, and it's a similar thing to the market, right? At any single given point of time, it's different. One example is I started in tech in 99. Developers were almost non-existent at the time. It was a very rare profession. It was also a very low-paid job. It was almost like a technician, like a support guy fixing phones and stuff. It was the same thing. And 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago, it became the fastest-growing, well-paid job in the world and all that stuff, right? So depending on which stage you're at, it varies a lot, right? So sometimes you're in the high growth curve in low capacity. Sometimes you're working with A players. Sometimes it's a crowded, dense market with people who have high expectations and no returns. So similar thing with investments in that case. When I take a look into something, first, and that's where personal brand is important, though, if you're looking for investment, because you want to make sure that the founder can deliver. They have a successful track record. They made it where they're resilient. They're not spoiled. They're not going to go to Bora Bora and waste all that money. They're not just for the Instagram likes. They're a hard, methodical worker with great track record, work ethics, pushing hard. That's kind of one thing. The second thing is many SaaS founders are missing that, but it's less about the problem and is there an actual product market fit? It's definitely important. I'd say whether the pain point is enough of a pain point to be a no-brainer solution. Because the more of a luxury thing it is, the harder it is to sell. Right. And the simplest example I'd say is many of the successful startups that I know are tackling immediately a new regulation that comes, let's say, from the EU or CCPA or something like that. Why? Because a massive government institution covering 400 million people decides to roll out something in a year where everyone who's not compliant is going to be subject to charges worth up to $20 million. Now, this is a good enough of a problem to tackle with massive total addressable market, short deadline, and something that you can solve quickly with a turnkey solution, one-off or kind of annual subscription. That makes a hell of a good problem, right? But if you don't have that specific pain of a problem, then moat is the second most critical thing, which normally means brand, which you don't have, network, which is the people you know, or data, which is something very specific that you have. So if you have one of these three, and brand, again, you can have two. If you're in a specific business that's your startup is tied to your career in a way where you have access to all these executives, then great. I'm going to give an example. A VC fund here a couple years ago, they funded an online site for pet owners, and that was for grooming services and some other kind of also pet sitting as well. Pet sitting, yeah, this was important. So first, pet sitting was pretty important after the pandemic, because during the pandemic, lots of people were lonely and staying at home. They got pets. Then they were returned back to the office and they didn't want to leave the pets there, or they had to travel and all that stuff. So first, it was a great problem. Like lots of people found themselves being parents. And suddenly back at the office. So big enough of a problem. That's one thing. But the second thing is the founder was the regional business development manager of the largest kind of food supplement for dogs, one of the top brands, over the past like 6 or 7 years. So that person has personally delivered goods to every single vet store and supermarket and all that, knows everyone. And starting that, they can literally just sit on their phone, dialing for 2 weeks straight and sign a plan.
So he has the data and he has the network, which you mentioned before.
Yes, and stumbled upon a problem that's quite of a problem, right? So bottom line, some of these stories, they are compelling enough. And another story, I came up with an idea. I don't have track record and background. I've used a 9-to-5 corporate job. It's not a fundable story. It may be a great story. It may be fundable for someone else, but definitely not something I didn't understand. And last but not least, I've made exceptions, but I always try to invest in things that I'm passionate about, I believe in, or I can personally use. For example, I've invested in InHeart and Lumen. First one is a digital twin of the heart. You can actually help doctors do surgeries remotely, kind of replicating the heart. Lumen is the first hardware kind of eyeglasses thing that helps blind people kind of see. It's kind of navigating them with cameras and telling them turn left, stop, you have an obstacle, a meter ahead or so. Super exciting. I'm an investor in Dula, which is the business that I use to set up my LLC corporations. They're doing all my bookkeeping for the States. And I have a bunch of these among my portfolio, but they're businesses I'm very excited about and proud and humble that I can invest in, or businesses that I use as a founder. I've invested in Beehive and Substack, by the way, which is kind of odd, but these are businesses that I use, and I see the growth trajectory. I see my clients using them, so I have kind of a channel, kind of communication channel or so. I'm an investor in Stack Marketer, which is an incredible network of newsletters for marketers, and I'm really excited to see how the market is kind of trending. I'm learning from the founders too. So things that I'm passionate about, I can help personally, are very close to heart when different opportunities come up.
That's really great. Maybe you can also give us some advices. What should we look out to not make a mistake when investing in something? What are the biggest, maybe 2, 3 things which we don't see at first with these founders or these shining object ideas?
Well, the truth is that investment is gambling. It's just legal,
Yeah,
and you can have predictions, but the reality is you can never fully understand or know what's going to happen, especially if you have to invest a lot more than what you make. Because with
yeah,
businesses like ours, we are making money every single month based on work we've done the past month. So they're kind of time
yeah,
and
yeah,
material
yeah,
type of jobs. That's why you don't need funding. Like, yeah, you can use funding to hire several experts and several salespeople, but you're just going to grow faster. That's not necessarily a great thing. Sometimes
yeah,
it's just overhead. But in VC funded businesses, someone needs to pour in a million or many millions to build a prototype of something and then try to go to market, which is a hypothesis. That's why it's a
yeah,
gamble.
yeah, yeah,
And how much you believe in this hypothesis and how likely it is to happen and how feasible it is for the market to stay the same is a gamble.
yeah, yeah,
The reality is that many VC funds, about 60% of their deals on average are write-offs. So you have venture capital people and analysts and people who know the space and know all the people, and
yeah,
they know that 2/3 of their businesses are write-offs. So with that in mind, the full honesty is nothing wrong in investing. Again, I'm a fan. I've done it over 20
yeah,
times.
yeah,
There are deals where you can support or you can kind of make use of one way or another. And that's great. But having a KPI ROI based expectation on return on
mm,
investment,
yeah,
this is a lucky shot type of thing. So only do that if you have spare money to spend on something that may or may not return in the future. Also keep in mind that many of these deals are go through different transformations. So first of again, more than half of them don't materialize. Some of them have dilution, meaning that you have additional funding rounds that eat up some of your valuation as well. That sucks. Then some of the top investors, they have preferred shares. So even in time of exit, they're making the multiples first, and then you may or may not do that. So there are lots of cases where if we have to be honest, you don't always see returns. I've seen that like twice. I've seen half of my deals kind of go under for the most part, or just move into kind of keep the lights on. But it's not something that it's literally luck and gambling to turn the 3 sevens on the roulette in the casino. So I'd say again, if you believe in that, if you can afford that, if you want to support someone, if you love the product, yeah, do that.
yeah,
But don't be pissed if it doesn't work out.
yeah, yeah.
Most startups don't make it.
Should be prepared to lose something. That's
Exactly. Yeah.
great. Uh, do you have any like advice for SaaS leaders? What should they focus on in the coming year? Something which you see as a trend?
Yeah. I like that you say the coming year. Okay. So, like I said, things are changing pretty
Not
fast. In the
not
coming
good.
year, I would say, and this may sound contradictory, but I'd say think of everything that AI cannot do and just do that. And this is, for the most part, stuff that's not happening online.
Can you give just a bit more context with that?
I will. The AI hype, once again, is creating that red ocean. Similarly to everyone's doing WordPress, meaning that WordPress gets devalued because it's cheap labor. Everyone's doing, SEO, so SEO as a term gets devalued because of cheap labor. So you want to be in a market that's less saturated and crowded, and not everyone's doing the same thing and trying to compete to the race to the bottom. Right now, AI is turning everything into endless email spams
Yeah.
and personalized outreach with Clay, endless social posts and AI comments on networks, endless DMs and phone calls. I get robocalls all the same, like 10, 15 times a day, all the time to all my numbers. So all of that is getting automated. Most people, especially busy people with capital, are just turning their phones off, shutting down social media and all that stuff. So anything that you can do that AI cannot do is a massive competitive advantage. Events are definitely kind of the go-to. So anytime you can do in-person type of stuff, meetups, event, kind of on-site, always crushing it. Anytime you can get partnerships or alumni or something else that you have a close reference and someone who knows
Yeah.
these
Yeah.
people can refer you, always a great spot. every time you can land into a pretty niche community, a Slack community, or a subscription platform for some business, or an EY or Forbes Council, something like that community, and can talk to people outside of the other platforms that are getting outreach, great idea. So think of all of these ways. This is most likely going to have much a pretty significant, massive payback for you versus spending 8 hours a day on trying to reply to tweets or LinkedIn posts and trying to craft the perfect LinkedIn post and doing with bots and something else that's massively oversaturated. And most actual buyers are actually not in these platforms anymore. I'm spending about $3,000 a month on thought leadership ads. Most of my ads cannot reach more than 500 people a day.
Yeah. So just try to be more human at the end.
Yeah, literally focus on kind of what others are not doing. Literally pick up the phone, find some common friends, or like find a local VC group or so and see where they have a meetup, see where they have kind of an on-site or workshop. Offer to do a workshop on-site, just travel there, do that. Prioritize more events. Again, I'm traveling a lot more than I did over the past 6 years, just because first, after the pandemic, most people crave real human contact, and that's very important. And second, again, people are just fed up with all the online spam they're getting. So they're meeting more, and there's a lot more on-site work going on.
That's great, Mario. I really enjoyed in our conversation. Do you think that there is anything which you want to share, which you think is important, but we maybe missed out during the conversation?
Anything in particular? Well, what I'm probably always, and again, going to double down on is make sure that you follow the market closely. And because we spoke, how do engineers turn into big managers? And said, well, an engineer is one thing, and then they need to turn into a big full stack engineer, and they need to learn a bunch of other different skills, and they need to learn how to manage the business. Then I'd say, unfortunately, the next best bet to make proper bets is not just understanding how to manage your own business, but how to manage other businesses, which is what you and I, by the way, with consulting and advisory are doing. Because if you work on your own business, you're in a bubble and you know your own space, and you may have external insight, but it's not enough. If you work in an agency and have 20 plus other businesses, then you know a lot more about the industry, honestly. And when you do that, just go higher up macro politics, macroeconomy, shifting trends. Go read Ray Dalio. He has a bunch of different books on market trends and shift economies and turn downs and debt cycles and all that. And understanding that market just gives you so much sense of things are repeating itself. We're going through a recession. Well, recessions are coming up every 6 to 10 years. So it's completely normal. If you're in a bubble, beware, because in the next 12 to 18 months, recession is coming. So don't overspend, rather save or do something else. So being smart about that. Warren Buffett is one of the most beloved investors. He was doing reading all day long. He was reading economy and history, politics, and stories of founders. He was studying them just as you study football players before investing in a football club or before hiring someone. That's how much debt and bread you also need at the same time. So I'd say just invest more time in that. It's really worth it. Reading is not forgotten. History is repeating itself. All cycles have ups and downs. And the more you understand that, the more, your pretty much entire lifestyle is going to be sorted.
Yeah, that's great. If we don't invest in ourselves, probably the things will not go as we want.
Exactly. Absolutely. 100%.
Thank you for your time. It was a pleasure for me to speak with you. And that's it for today's episode. So a big thank you to Mario for sharing his journey and insights. If you enjoyed the episode, follow the podcast so you don't miss the future conversation of the other guests with SaaS and IT leaders. This podcast is powered by SmartClick, your partner for B2B SaaS companies looking to scale the organic leads. I'm your host, Milan Savov, and until next time, keep leading, keep scaling, keep growing. See ya.